Welcome, everyone. I thought I would pop on and do a recap. It's been a fun and busy summer, and now we're into fall. And just due to my schedule and availability of all the amazing people I wanted to speak with, we kind of had two seasons happening at once. So we had our summer dance program season, which started a little earlier and kind of followed us right up to the start of summer dance programs because once those start, nobody's available to talk to you. And then we also had our latest season looking at dance-based or faith-based dance ministries. So they kind of are in and out of each other. They are two separate seasons if you like to go by the season, or if you just like to listen to whatever's next, you'll see that it kind of goes in and out of summer dance programs to faith-based dance programs. So I just wanted to highlight from our summer dance program series. So our first episode was with Anna Marie McGinn out of Central Florida Ballet. And it's always interesting to go back and see how content resonated with listeners and maybe what part of that content. And it's easy to make assumptions about how you think people receive the information. And Anne Marie has just an amazing energy. This episode shot into my top 10 of all time, like right away. And I just think part of that is just her energy kind of comes flying through your earbuds or whatever, however you're listening to it. And another great thing about Anne Marie is that while she is the school director for Central Florida Ballet, her experience as a professional dancer is recent, or more recent. And so she has, some immediate things to apply from her experience of, juggling wanting to dance as much as possible, but feeling like she needs to still be preparing for the future. And how do you figure out how to go to college while you're still dancing professionally and take care of your body and have a job and manage all that. And so Anna Marie is in a really exciting stage of coming in as a director, which is a huge responsibility of being a director of a ballet school and really being intentional about the syllabus. What are students learning? How are you bringing everyone together? And so I loved naming this episode because she had a great analogy about crock pots and frying pans. And she was really speaking to the fact that we all learn differently, we all synthesize information differently, and that it's okay. And to not compare yourself to other dancers because we've all had different kinds of training. Maybe we come from a really creative family where we've already had a lot of exposure to art, music, creative ideas, and making things. Some of us might be the first person in our family to explore ballet, and so you're figuring out a lot of things kind of on your own. That was my experience. And so to always be inspired by the people you're around and learning as much as you can from each person, but not immediately freaking out like, oh, they figured out this jump really fast and they look amazing doing it. And it's taking me a little more time. We learn different things in different ways. That is important to notice, though, if you are feeling like everything is really hard to learn and develop, to look into, okay, am I in a place where I'm kind of like in the right path for me? Is the way that classes are being run and pacing, like, is that working for me? Is it manageable for me? Am I being challenged in a productive way, or am I just feeling like totally behind and overwhelmed all the time? So Anna Marie just brought such a joyful energy to our conversation. And, you could feel the hum of everything in the school going on around as she was getting ready for their summer dance program and really looking at how do we have a Central Florida ballet experience, but also maybe bring in some outside teachers to expose students to other styles of dance and ways of teaching dance. And so it's all a balance. So Anna Marie kicked off our summer dance program season. And then we spoke with Emily Kent. And so having these two back to back was really interesting because very different worlds. So Anna Marie she was speaking on behalf of a professional ballet summer dance program experience that resonated with me. I worked for a bunch of them, I attended them for folks really focused on a career in ballet, whether as a dancer, choreographer, director. And then Emily Kent is with Pilabelis, which is, I forget, they might describe themselves as the old, I'm not going to say that right, but they are a modern dance company founded out of Dartmouth. And, Pilabolus, that name is so funky, and it's referencing like a self-reproducing fungus. So this idea of constant creation and developing. And if you've ever seen their work, it's just really mesmerizing. It's very complex. The sort of strategic and analytical process of understanding those partnering patterns that they're in are huge. And so Emily, her background was really interesting because, some people have a like, I want to dance for this company and do this thing with them. And so Emily has a dance education approach. She has a degree in dance education from the University of Georgia. She danced with Pilabolus and she moved into various teaching and educational roles. And so Emily's big gift, and in terms of education, sometimes the biggest gifts are not the most exciting ones. And so as Emily progressed through the organization, she was noticing, and she had experienced this herself, that they needed sort of a manual or template of like, if you've been educated in the Pilabolus method and practice, like, what does that mean? And when teachers go out, are they prepared for how to best represent and communicate about the Pilabolus way of moving and dancing and expressing? And so Emily took on that task and some of it is like archival work, kind of looking at the history of the organization, what were key moments, and in terms of leadership and teachers and dancers, organizations do change over time, and that can be a good thing. You also just want to notice, like, oh yeah, this is where we really started doing more of this. And an amazing thing about Pilabolus for their summer programs, they have like non-professional dancer adult programs. So if you're someone who just wants to really challenge how you think and understand your body and the relationship of your body to other bodies and space around you, you can go to the Pilabolus Summer Intensive. She shared a story about a dentist who likes to come on a regular basis and just think differently, be challenged, move in a different way. Sometimes that can be really liberating to just step out of whatever your regular routine is and jump into a different ocean and swim with those fish and see how that goes. So, getting to talk with Emily was really great. And then we had two guests from universities. So there's a lot of different summer dance programs that focus on different styles of dance, and sometimes the environment is really key to the nature of that program. So Madeline Harvey at Colorado State University and Gray Robinson at Texas A&M, their summer dance program is our programs are a great opportunity for folks wanting to sort of investigate what it would be like to major in dance at that school. And, the summer program can stand alone. It's not just can't come to summer camp at this university. You'll get class in choreography, modern and ballet, and get the lay of the land in terms of the campus. And Gray was really talking about a Texas A&M, really prepping people for the audition experience. And sometimes auditions can be like really scary. So you need to do a lot of them so that they're not so scary. And you need to understand what is involved in an audition. I can think back to being a young dancer and showing up to audition like the first few times. And I was like, my parents didn't have a dance background. So I was just kind of like showing up to these things, like trying to do what everybody else was doing. And so, I didn't understand that I really needed to warm myself up. It's not necessarily like a real class, and you might be really nervous. So even if you do get a good warm up in the class, you might still be kind of tight because you're just nervous and not breathing well. And so, Madeline Harvey also brings a huge breadth to her work there, managing the Summer Institute. And, she's had some really interesting projects she got to do, and she got to work in a healthcare sector. They were working on educational tools for children with diabetes. So how can they make educating children about the best ways to eat and manage their diabetes. How can they make that a vibrant and interactive learning experience? So she used dance as a tool to explore how like one would move through a space and choose healthy or beneficial choices. I forget the exact language she used, to make those things possible. So two very different universities, two different kind of styles of programs and backgrounds represented, but great choices. And they both were really clear, coming to their summer intensive. If you discover you want to go there, that's awesome. If you discover that it's not a good fit for you, that's great. The summer intensive is time to figure that out before you have already been accepted and show up at a school and realize it's just not a great fit for you. I remember being at Florida State and meeting someone who her freshman year had been at a very high level conservatory, and I was so impressed that she'd gotten accepted there. And I was like, well, then, like, why would you leave there? And it just wasn't a good fit for her in terms of where it was in the country, really emphasizing one particular style of dance and all of that. So it doesn't mean that it's like a bad school or a bad program, but if it's not aligned with your interests and your goals and going to challenge you to grow and learn in a healthy way, that's not going to be a good fit, and it's not really going to work out for anybody. So those were two important things. If you're thinking about majoring in dance at a university, go to a summer program at a university, ideally one you're interested in. And those programs tend to be shorter. So you might be able to do two summer programs at two different universities if you're trying to sort that out. And Gray Robinson really talked about that, about, figuring out what works for you. A traditional 6 week summer dance program is not going to work for everybody. It is a huge physical endurance challenge. It can be a huge financial commitment. It could involve a lot of travel that maybe being that far away from your family for that long is not really going to work for you. So Gray really stressed, figuring out how to make what works for you. And there's a lot of 1 week, 2 week summer program opportunities out there. So figuring out how to kind of make your own program that works for you is a great option. That I think sometimes we feel like, oh, I have to do it this way. Maybe, maybe not. I always say that's the beauty and challenge of the arts field. There's a million ways you could do something. So that could be inspiring or intimidating. And then I was so happy to connect with Katie Mayo at Charlotte Ballet. She just has a beautiful history in dance. And she even got to train under Violette Verdi, which is just such a beautiful lineage. And, so she talks about building the program at Charlotte, all her time at Boston, and having mentors that are going to help you make the best choice for where to train. So getting to know people at programs that you're interested in outside of the current administration. So if you have a dancer that's maybe a couple years older than you are, and they've just done auditions at all these places, asking them what the audition was like. If they just went to a program, what was it like? What did they think was the main sort of offering of that program or not? And also really understanding how you're building your professional network and reputation at those summer programs. So if you're a dancer, it's starting really early, because most dancers in summer programs, you're like late middle school or early high school. So your professional sort of reputation, the ethos are already getting started quite early. And so being intentional about building relationships, being interested in people and what they're doing, and learning as much as you can about the dance industry and field. I remember I was working at Miami City Ballet, and one of the students we had, like, he was a good dancer. He didn't seem like totally crazy like about dance, but he was a good dancer. But I started kind of being like, why are you here? And he was really interested in dance, film, and photography. So he was a good dancer, and he would go to whatever program like worked out for him and his family financially, or if he got a scholarship. But he would spend the whole summer. I mean, he had all his peers around him taking, like, learning how to take really beautiful dance photographs. And all the other dancers were like super excited to have beautiful dance photos to take, to put in their portfolio, put on their Instagram. So being in a place where you can practice the craft you want to learn, super important. And I know as a dancer, sometimes it was really hard having a photographer who knew nothing about dance. And even if you are a dancer, learning how to put dance and photography together is a new thing. So he was, being intentional about building his craft, and he was a good dancer. He wasn't necessarily like striving to become a professional dancer in a ballet company, but he was getting to know people in the dance world, and to build his platform and network that way. And talking to Catherine Lawrence was great. I had a lot of East Coast kind of connections, and so I was happy to connect with Catherine at Ballet West, and we had a special overlap connection. I was working at the Joyce Theater when Ballet West came to New York and performed at the Joyce, and so she was in the company at that time, and she said she had just come back from maternity leave, and it was so hard to navigate like leaving her baby at home and coming to New York and managing all of that. So that was really special when I realized, oh, I've gotten to see you dance on stage. And Catherine talked about her experience at Herod Conservatory. And again, she had a mentor who helped her and her parents figure out how to make the next best steps for her, next best steps for her, that was really helpful and really important, especially if I think she said her parents were track athletes. They weren't dancers. They understood the athletic mindset and discipline of a dancer, but they weren't dancers. And she also made a really interesting point that I think people don't know, or it's easy to kind of forget about, that there are lots of dancers who are extremely shy. And people think, how could that be? You're on stage in front of lots of people. Well, a lot of the time the lights are off. You can't really see the people, and you're performing a very rehearsed thing. It's not an improvisational moment that you're having with a bunch of people. And so she talked about how, that shyness was really challenging to navigate in class. And sometimes, like it was hard to speak up and ask questions, and that dance was a helpful way. Like helped her establish comfort in her body in front of other people, to then establish the confidence to communicate and present in front of people. And she talked about how being an amazing dancer and having this wonderful career with Ballet West, then when she moved into a leadership role administratively with the company, she was having to spend a lot of time presenting in front of parents, board members, other administrative meetings. And so that was a new challenge. And so we just talked about, there's always growth happening all the time as a dancer and as an artist. And hopefully we can take each opportunity as a chance to get more comfortable with being uncomfortable. So I titled that episode Getting Uncomfortable. If your goal is to not be uncomfortable, the arts world is maybe not going to be, well, it's not going to be smooth sailing either way, but it's going to be really difficult if your goal is to not be uncomfortable. So learning to get comfortable being uncomfortable, really important to navigate life as a dancer, as a dance educator, as a choreographer. And then these next couple episodes are from my faith-based season, so we'll look at those another time. But then I got to speak with Victoria Schneider, who is on the ballet faculty at Herod Conservatory. So I got connected to her after speaking with Catherine. And all of these episodes were great. Getting to speak with Victoria was also a beautiful ballet history lesson. And so she started out at Pennsylvania Ballet when Barbara Weisberger was still there, when it was still Pennsylvania Ballet. Now it's Philadelphia Ballet, I believe. And she had some wonderful balancing training. She spoke, just so lovingly and like respectfully, professionally, of her late husband, Jürgen Snyder, and about his work and creating pedagogy and practices for teachers. And Victoria has completed the Vaganova teacher training program in Russia. So think about how challenging your summer programs are, and then going to another country to do their program. And it's just wonderful hearing her experiences. And she and her husband were involved with Grand Prix competitions. So they spent time all over the world, in Tokyo and Germany, and I believe in Australia and in Florida, all over. But she was talking about how when she, got to Russia, and that, she hadn't been training with Jürgen, she doesn't think she would have been able to get in. He just really helped shape her as a teacher. So there's one thing about becoming a dancer, it's another thing to become a teacher. And so they inform each other, but they are two different things. But she talked about, it was just when she got there, like the Russian way of communicating felt, like abrasive and aggressive. And then as she, got to know people and the culture better, someone was explaining to her, in terms of like how the teachers were working with them, that, they felt that it was really unkind to not be brutally honest with you. Like if you were not getting something, they didn't want to just like sort of let you go on your way thinking it was all fine. And that can come across as really harsh. But kind of understanding like where you are in that context, they felt like it was their duty to be really honest with you so that you knew what you needed to work on and do or change or whatever. And so being able to manage that mindset of, okay, the way this is being communicated does not like feel great. I'm not loving it. Is that the intention? And I'm choosing to come be a part of this thing. I want to learn what they have to share. So, am I able to receive that and understand how they communicate? So, that was just an amazing conversation. I encourage you to go back and listen to it and all the others, but especially if you want a ballet history lesson. Victoria's consistent and persistent episode was really amazing. And, the thing about consistence and persistence that is not exciting. Showing up every day, over and over again, continuing to work, 1 millimeter at a time on strengthening, improving, increasing, like adding one more turn, one more rotation, all of that. But over time really pays off. It's like compound interest and being persistent. Victoria, shared about some twists and turns in her life and having to kind of sometimes start over again and again. And going from teaching at Pennsylvania Ballet to teaching in Italy, then coming back to the US and starting again. And then the company where she was in Florida was transitioning to Colorado since she went to New York with her husband, and just so many things to navigate and learning how to continually build your skill set, be patient, be intentional, be deliberate. And Victoria had a great statement about, because summer programs can be hard. Students are showing up, and as a teacher, like you don't really know where they came from, how they're used to getting corrections, what kind of corrections. So she said, when a summer program, especially, you kind of people need the first few days to get over their nerves, get placed in their class, and get comfortable with their roommate and things. But she just said if I've given a student a correction like 2 or 3 times, then and that's not nothing's changing. She said then I'll ask them, have you had this correction before? And if they say, well, yeah, they tell me that all the time, and then she'll say, well, what are you doing about it? And so she was really pointing out that, she can only, like, she can give you the same correction over and over again, but if you're not going to do something about it, it's not going to change. And so, that question, what are you doing about it? Is like, maybe they just need clarity on the correction. Maybe they kind of misunderstood what the correction meant. Maybe they're just really overwhelmed and tired. But as a teacher, sometimes it's hard you can't make students want things for themselves. And you need students to develop that persistence of, oh, I've gotten this correction a lot the last 6 months. Like maybe I need to do a few privates, get this sorted out, and ask more questions, observe older dancers, whatever it is. But that was talking about how to mitigate like your own frustration. Like if you're going to keep giving a student the same correction every day and nothing happens, it's easy to get really frustrated. So you can kind of ask them what they're planning to do about that correction. And if they're not planning to do anything, then you can just kind of go on teaching class and doing the best you can with that student. And, it's a lot for students to take hold of that. And so her point was we have to teach students that they have to learn to manage their career and training. So that prompt of what are you going to do about this, if a student hasn't figured out that they need to do something about it, is hopefully helping them realize, oh, like my teacher is not really her job to follow me around all the time and make sure I fix this. It's her job to point it out to me, show me what to do about it, and it's my job to work at it until it is strengthened, improved, not an issue, etc. So I thought that was really helpful, just life advice, if you're encountering the same issues or concerns over and over again, to step back, kind of say, what am I doing about this? If the answer is nothing, then maybe stop being frustrated by it or assess what you can do about it. So that was our summer dance program season of interviews. And I'm so grateful for everyone who made time to speak with me, especially some of our directors at ballet companies, very busy time for them. So it was really awesome to get to speak with them and hear their personal background and how that informs what they do in their summer programs. Katie Mayo talked about, she has the Dance for Parkinson's teaching certification. And she said, while she doesn't actively teach that class right now, she said it really changed how she approached people and movement. There are so many things going on in someone's body, mentally, physically. And so understanding how to, like we have as teachers, we so want to teach the thing that we know to people. But there's a lot kind of between the teacher and student that might have to be navigated, and figuring out how you can best present and teach someone something, and what they need to make that happen, what you need to make that happen. And so understanding that, sometimes we learn things for our own practice, sometimes we learn things for our own benefit, sometimes we're learning things for other people's benefit. Like, this is going to make me a better teacher for this group of students, or going to a summer program where I'm outside of my home state or my home country is going to help me open my eyes and learn a lot about other ways of doing things and communicating, and give me that comfort to navigate, because ballet is an extremely intercultural environment. I worked as a residential counselor for a year-round program that we had students from Israel, China, South Korea, Italy, and then around the US. So a lot going on in one little dorm with like 20 students. And so really important to be able to understand some cultural norms and communication styles and be able to communicate appropriately. Like, one of our, I come from the Southeast, where like everybody hugs everybody, even if you don't know them. And one of our girls from China was having, just a hard time. She was really homesick, and I think maybe an audition hadn't gone well for her. And, so she was just having a hard day. And, I just reached out and hugged her. And that was not, like, being hugged was not the appropriate sort of cultural response to that. So kind of realizing, oh, just because I want to be loving and kind and hug this person doesn't mean that that's the best way to support them, and to figure out other ways to do that and to encourage them. So if you haven't, go back, check out those episodes. There's just some really rich ballet history, little bunhead nerding time, and just ways to be inspired of the path of becoming a teacher and leader in dance. Thanks for being here, folks.